back, baby.
Offense, you know what to do.
It's football time in Tennessee.
Get me Tennessee.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 1796 Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Normal Ball Fan, joining alongside Ryan. Doing a quick game recap. I mean, there's not really much to talk about with this game other than this Tennessee culture seems to be just at 110%. Tennessee beats Kent State 71-0, and that was scored 140, to be honest. But, you know, Nico only played the first quarter, some change. Most of the starters were the same. Lance Hurd didn't even play. Cameron Seldon was held out again. But Ryan, you were there. Let's just talk about the atmosphere first. For a game like this, what was it like?
Easily the best atmosphere for a game against an opponent of that caliber that I've ever been to. At one point, the decibel meter got up to like 118, and I think the record was 125 against Alabama. So people were – it was a celebration of how far we've
Actually,
come.
it was 134 against Georgia.
Oh, that's right, on the first play. Yeah. But anyway, it was like a celebration of how far we've come in these first two games, and really the last 4 years in the athletic department is what it felt like. I mean, Dalton Connect was there; he got a huge ovation. I mean, you name it, they were there. Al Wilson, Zakai, Ziegler. I mean, it was just a big party, and it was beautiful. Just talking about the game, though, like you said, Tennessee could have scored as much as they wanted to. After Nico left the game, we put the ball in the air 9 times and scored, I think, 27 more points after he left the game. So that just shows you, how much of a landslide win this was. Probably the worst opponent I've ever seen a good Tennessee team face in Neyland Stadium. A Tennessee team that could dominate like they did. But I want to touch on this real quick, just right off the rip. Is anybody mad about the onside kick, about us scoring 71? Like, eat shit. Like, I don't care. I watched us lose to Georgia State. I watched us struggle with these type of opponents under Butch Jones, under Jeremy Pruitt, even under Philip Fulmer. I mean, hell, Peyton Manning lost to Memphis once. Like, this was what should happen when Tennessee faces an opponent like this. And like I said, this will be the second time I've said it, actually. We could have scored 140, 150 points, but Josh Heupel had mercy. So.
We came out in the second half, and we only scored 6 points in the second half. It seemed like Heupel really just wanted that score record just to, show that they could do it. But what I really want to talk about, because obviously everyone knows Nico's good, but these running backs did absolutely insane. We had 3 guys who played Peyton Lewis because he had 99, but we had 3 guys with 100-plus yards of rushing, averaging 7.8, 9.9, and 17.1 yards per carry with 6 touchdowns. And we also had 10 guys with 10 rushing yards or more, which is absolutely bonkers. I mean, Nico, to me, in my opinion, should have been out at the first quarter. I don't think he should have even came out in the second.
Yeah.
But I understand that you want him to get snaps and, get, in the rhythm or whatever. But, I mean, this game was 37-0 in the first quarter. You might as well just sit him. But Dylan Sampson on his birthday had 4 touchdowns, 101 yards. Absolutely nuts. I mean, Dylan Sampson to me, between him and Parrish on Ole Miss, those 2 are the best running backs in all of college football. I don't care what anyone says. Dylan Sampson, I think, I have a little bit of bias, but I think Dylan Sampson should be being mentioned for the Heisman, because if they didn't take him out, they could have stat padded this game. They could have let Dylan Sampson rush for 300 yards with 8 touchdowns. I mean, like, they could have, but they didn't. Overall, I mean, defense again. This defense, I understand who are playing. We're expected to do this, but they only had 112 total yards, and they went 2 for 12 on third downs, and I think they only had like 3 first downs the whole game. Like I said, this is an easy game to just let it slip up and only score 45 and whatever. This team looks dominant, man. Like, this team looks like they don't care who they're playing. They're playing like it's their last football game of their career. That's what I get from this team. I mean, Jacoby Thomas. That, first of all, football is not what we know and love from back in the day. Because that hit was a perfect football hit, and Jacoby Thomas laid the pipe. I mean, that was insane. I love Jacoby Thomas. He plays with some fire, man. And whenever he is on the field, he's getting after it. But obviously we have more to talk about with this game, but I want to ask you, you were there. Who were the guys that you really said, dang, okay, they're taking their opportunities and really showing something? Who's your guy in offense and defense?
For offense, I think it's kind of a cop-out. If I were to say one, I would say Mike Matthews, just because he was getting snaps while the starters were still in the game. I mean, he caught 2 balls, 35 yards, 1 touchdown. He made some nice moves on the little quick screen pass he caught, and then he caught the touchdown from Gaston. But my runner-up would be Peyton Lewis. I thought he showed some flashes, and he's going to help the team down the road. For defense, I mean, it's kind of hard to choose because we have so much depth now. Like,
yeah, it's true. Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, I thought Boo Carter looked great running down the quarterback when they snapped it over the quarterback's head. I think the third time they snapped it over his head 3 times, but he ran him down and got a tackle. But I listened to heard this on the radio because me and my dad left at halftime because
I mean, you didn't miss much at second half.
But at the end of the game, Bob Kessling said on the radio, just on the broadcast, that every player who dressed for Tennessee last night got into the game.
That's awesome. You expect that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when the last time that happened for Tennessee, but we were playing our 5th string quarterback and our 6th or 7th string running back in the 4th quarter.
Listen, I didn't even 5th quarterback. Didn't even know.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it's incredible that those kids can get a chance to get on the field, that are just there to have some fun, fill out the scout team and just be in the program, and they got a chance to get on the field, which I think is awesome. I wanted to ask you though, Jim, never mind. What was your thought on the onside kick? Did you think it was mean? Did you think it was classless and all this garbage?
Well, no. I mean, this is a game. These guys paid. The Kent State came to Neyland to get their butts whooped. I mean, they got paid $1.5 million to come to Neyland and get their butts whooped. I mean, this was supposed to happen. Now everyone calling for Josh Heupel is just a bully and all this stuff. Good. You know what? I'll take that. Because Josh Heupel, let me tell you thought he was bad this week. If he had the opportunity to do that at Oklahoma, my God, he would. He would. I mean, a lot of Oklahoma fans are really dismissing this game coming up, and we'll talk about Oklahoma later on, but Josh Heupel is out for blood, and So is this team. This team, the culture with this team is they want to win this game for their coach. And I guarantee you he's saying it. This game's been served for a while, but no, when it comes to onside kick, man, dude, the games you do that stuff in where you practice those because you never know when you're going to have to do that in an actual big game. And I just think it was perfectly executed. Got the special teams got on the ball and it bounced out of their hands and they did what they had to do. I mean, it wasn't like them trying to bully anybody. It was just it's football. It's a game. Like I said, they got paid to get their butts whooped. So, I mean, it shouldn't be everyone complaining.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you saw the interview that Josh Heupel did on the field with Cole Kubelik, but he said, I mean, he basically cut a wrestling promo. One of the coldest, one of the hardest lines I've ever heard from a coach. The opponent is nameless, it's faceless. Like, that's awesome. I mean, that's the type of attitude you want out of a head coach. And Dylan Sampson also on the radio broadcast when they were interviewing him in the post game. He was the one, when they're doing warm ups, he was hyping up the team in the huddle before they break out into their position groups, and he was just telling them, like you mentioned earlier, like it doesn't matter who we're playing. This could be the last time you suit up on a field. I mean, you never know what's going to happen with a violent sport like football. So you got to take every moment and cherish it. Don't take it for granted. And I think it showed. I mean, it obviously showed. I mean, 65 points in the first half, and basically the whole second half was just, like I said, the walk-ons and the people to fill out the roster just living out their childhood dreams. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, and now I will talk about Nico for a second. I'm not going to – he didn't really play much, obviously, but my God, this kid could sling it. Oh, my God. The pass down the middle of the field, right over the linebacker's hands again, straight to a right into the wide receiver's arms in stride. Like, this kid is special. Not only that, he threw a 53-yard touchdown pass to Chris Brazzell. Perfect in stride. I just can't. This kid is literally helping Heupel turn this program into a powerhouse. And I do want to shout out one guy on offense because you shouted out the other guy. Deshaun Bishop's got to be talked about. Cam Seldon, honestly, Cam Seldon's special. I think he's a little bit more talented than Deshaun Bishop. But Deshaun Bishop is taking his opportunities and turning them into, to me, he's the RB2. At this point, like, Cam Seldon's been hurt. Obviously, he's RB2, but Deshaun Bishop, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 17.1 average for yards per carry. I mean, the way this kid sees the field is incredible. He's so patient. He finds the hole. And even with his long run, he just, like, little cut field to break that last guy to get in the end zone. I mean, you got young guys like this doing that, and it's just special. This team's special. Like I said, the team had 456 rushing yards as a team. Like, literally, Nico literally didn't have to throw the ball. Like, literally, we could have handed it off every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking to Nico's performance, like you said, he dropped it in a bucket to Brazzell on that, I think it was around 50-something yard touchdown, 53 maybe. And that pass to Nimrod over the middle was something that NFL scouts will gobble up come whenever he decides to leave. I mean, that was incredible. And, I think he can be even better because he did have some misfires. And I know that Nico's the type of person to say, I didn't play perfect. I mean, he's always going to say that no matter what his stat line looks like. And I think he'll have plenty of film to look at, plenty of stuff to work on going into the Oklahoma game, which, again, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, we're keeping these guys healthy is the main thing. No one was drastically hurt. Everyone seems to be healthy after this game. You know, Lance Hurd didn't even play, which it's fine. We don't need Lance Hurd to play in this game. I'm telling you, I think it's like I said, this could be hard not to talk about Oklahoma because this week's huge. You know what this week reminds me of is last year when we went to Florida, because that game was the season really, and this game's not the season because Tennessee could keep up with everybody this year, but like if Tennessee wins this game, I mean, you're gonna be on a national scale to where Tennessee, if they win this week, they're gonna have to be a top 5 team. I mean, you can't keep them out of the top 5 if they win this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Ole Miss, I don't know who they play coming up this week. I mean, they got to be in conference play, I would assume, but we'll look at that in a second. But Tennessee still in the top 10. They moved up another spot to number 6. I mean, they're already getting the national attention. I mean, that's just what happens since Nico's been starting. It was 35-0 against Iowa, 69-3 against Chattanooga, 51-10 against NC State, and now 71-0. Like, we have been bludgeoning teams ever since he's taken the reins. And it's not all him. I mean, our defense obviously is tremendously better so far in this season than it has been. But the national attention, if they keep going like this, will get off the chains. I mean, probably even more than it was in 2022, even when the first playoff rankings came out.
Oh, for sure. I mean, with this 12-team playoff, I mean, this was one of the games, like I said, if we win. We'll talk about the preview at a different time, but if Tennessee could win this game, I mean, this was one of the games that you were even saying was a loss or a toss-up. Everyone's saying loss or toss-up because it is hard to win on the road in the SEC, but I think, this team is going to be the most hyped Tennessee team. If they win, this will be the most hyped Tennessee team. But like you said, it'll be better than 2022. And I could only imagine what the games are going to be like when Florida, Bama, Kentucky come to town, because it will be electric all year.
Yeah. I just looked at Ole Miss's schedule. They still are not in conference play next weekend. They're playing Georgia Southern, and then they play Kentucky after that. So
we'll jump. If Tennessee wins, we'll jump them just because of their opponent.
Exactly.
I'm not hating on Ole Miss. I just don't think. I mean, they'll probably beat Georgia Southern by 40, 50. But if Tennessee even just comes out with a win, I think they would jump Ole Miss. And who does Bama play this week? I don't know.
I think they have a bye week before.
They are, bye week. Ohio State plays Marshall. We might jump even Ohio State at that point. They play Marshall. Texas plays Louisiana Monroe, and Georgia looks like they have a bye week. Yeah, Georgia has a bye week, I think, too, because they play Alabama next week. So, I mean, Tennessee, everything's looking. That's why everyone's talking about us right now. I really feel like the path to the playoff is looking great right now. If you could win this game, you're definitely getting talked about. I mean, they're already getting talked about. I just think Tennessee's the better team. I think Vegas knows who the better team is, which is why we went from plus 3.5 underdogs to, I think it's plus 7.5 now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what? And I don't know if you have anything else really because of this Kent State game, because it was out, everyone played, But if you don't, I do want to talk about Oklahoma, because not our game itself, but Oklahoma played Tulane yesterday, and my God, they struggled. And this is the third week of them struggling. So I kind of want to get your opinion on that whole situation, and what you see from a fan looking at Oklahoma coming up.
Yeah, just a cursory glance. I mean, Jackson Arnold hasn't been entirely clean yet. He's yet to throw for over 200 yards in a game. against lesser competition that they've been playing. I mean, they've played Temple, Houston, and Tulane, and he hasn't thrown for 200 yards yet. And it has a lot to do with what we'll talk about on Tuesday in the preview pod. I mean, their offensive line is a sieve right now, for the lack of a better term. And I don't know, it just looks like they're not on the same page yet on offense. I mean, their defense has been playing well, but I think we have the weapons to exploit it, obviously. So that's just my cursory glance, just looking at Oklahoma so far.
Yeah, and I agree. They were talking about it while I was watching the game, but when Jackson Arnold's pressured, he is very chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
If you could contain him and with the running game, because they love to do a read option where Jackson just runs, I think Tennessee is going to be prepared for that, and they're going to pressure him. Big plus for when Tennessee comes to town is their number one wide receiver who is injured for the next couple weeks. Farouk, he's out. But Deion Burks has been stepping up. He's fast, really quick. That'll be interesting. I think Jamad McCoy, who's been pretty stellar since he's been here, is going to be on him. But yeah, as a whole, just talking about Jackson Arnold, is if you pressure him, it is a different quarterback. And with that offensive line situation, and in the preview podcast, we'll be prepared to tell you who's injured and all that stuff. But yeah, they've struggled against us for opponents. They were home yesterday, and Tulane had an opportunity. I think it was just a bad coaching effort to where they threw on like 4th and 1, and they could have gotten the first down and maybe took the lead, but they decided to throw it, and yeah. So, but let's talk about Tennessee and just the team as a whole. I mean, so far, 3 weeks through, I mean, other than Nico, because obviously everyone talks about Nico, I mean, who's really, showing you something? And Dylan Sampson. Don't take that. That's the cop out. Okay. Don't say Dylan Sampson either. But offense or defense doesn't have to be. But who's the guy that you're really impressed with, and really shocked or surprised about?
Yeah, like you said, I think so far Dylan Sampson has been the main engine of the offense, and that's how it should be against the type of opponents we've been playing. But other than him, I think Brew has come back from injury very well. So that would be my pick for offense. I think he's the security blanket, and he's going to be big once we get into conference play coming up this weekend. But defensively, you mentioned his name. Jamad McCoy looks like a true lockdown corner. Like he is playing incredible. And if he can continue to keep that up as we get into conference play, and the pass rush, which is obviously helping the secondary right now, can continue what they're doing, it's going to be hard to score on Tennessee enough to overcome what they're probably going to give up on offense, whoever Tennessee's playing. So those are my two. Both the McCoys, Brew and Jamad.
Yeah. You know who I'm really impressed with? And, I mean, Keenan Peely, bro. He is such a leader. And that's what Tennessee's got this year. They have a bunch of leaders, man. Cooper Mays, Keenan Peely, Brew McCoy. I mean, Nico's a leader in his own. I mean, Dylan Sampson, you were saying, before the game, hyping everybody up against a team like Kent State. I mean, easy to sleep on opponents like that. This team's ready to play Saturday, and they know what's at stake. I mean, this is a big game. I mean, if you win this game, you're starting the season off probably 5-0, going into Florida, coming back home, because you're on a little two-game road stand right here. And then you come back home for 4 SEC games. And you can win all 4 of them. I mean, you're going to win at least 2 of them. But, just the leadership, man. Keenan Peely. now this is a hot take. I know he's a little bit older, but Keenan Peely, the way he looks on the field, he looks like a first-round draft pick. I mean, Mike, he's literally sideline to sideline. He's the guy with the green dot. He's controlling the defense. He's absolutely stellar so far, and a guy we've needed on our defense for a while. And I really think he stepped up. A guy like Jermon McCoy, I think Boo and Christian Harrison doing great. Jacoby Thomas, I already talked about him. That kid is just a firecracker on defense, and I love it. And I mean, I shout out the whole defense. I mean, the defense gets after it. James Pierce, think about here, and here's my thing for next week. James Pierce is going to go off. I think James Pierce will have at least 2 sacks against Oklahoma. I think it's going to be hell on high water for the Oklahoma offensive line, because James Pierce was, pretty much held back again with snaps when it comes to snaps. And everyone's talking about him saying, oh, he ain't doing this, the lesser opponents and all this stuff. I think it's going to be a watch me game. I really do. But yeah, again, this Tennessee culture is awesome. Heupel's really turned this program around. I'm trying not to get into the Oklahoma game because I really want to talk about it. So what else you got?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with. I mean, the thing about James Pierce, I mean, if Tennessee were giving up points to these teams, I would be worried about it, but we're not. So it's a non-issue for me at this point. Talking about James Pierce and his lack of stats. I mean, if you watch the film, he's getting there. He's getting pressure. He's affecting the game, even if he wasn't getting pressure. So that's what I'll say about James Pierce for now. And I agree. I think he'll have a coming out party. But I just wanted to end tonight's episode, just go around the SEC. What happened in the SEC on Saturday? Georgia at Kentucky. Georgia escapes with a 1-point win, 13-12. I mean, excuse me? What were your thoughts on that game, Jim?
So I just think I'm not ruling out Georgia as the number 1 team in the country over one game. But again, road games are tough no matter where you're playing in the SEC. But it's like their offense just isn't what it normally is. And I don't know if that was a fluke game and it just happened to happen like that. But they best be getting it fixed because they're about to go into a pretty good onslaught of games. I mean, they play Bama, Texas, us, Ole Miss, all this season. And teams like us and Ole Miss and Texas, to where, and even Alabama, they could score. And you cannot be having an offense like that against teams like us, because it's very hard to keep, a Tennessee offense with a quarterback like Nico under wraps, or even Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe, the running back. You ever hear of him? But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm not ready to say Georgia is not the same Georgia. I think it was a fluke game, but we'll see against Alabama. We'll see, because Alabama looked a little bit better this past week, with Proctor back in as their left tackle. But we'll see. I don't think Georgia's even close to being panicked. I think you won. That's all you need to do. Win. I don't care if it was by 1 point. You only scored 13, whatever. You won the game. That's all that matters. You go on to the next one. Same thing. I would love, Tennessee's got that attitude. Just go win the game. Go 1-0 this week. Move on to the next.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just felt like a game to me where Georgia was, I hate to say overlooking, but that's what it looked like. It looked like they were looking past Kentucky, and Kentucky was coming off a supremely embarrassing loss the week prior to South Carolina. So I think those two things combined gave you that game on Saturday night in Kroger Field. but it's just the SEC, man. It's weird. And speaking of South Carolina, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I think Kentucky's just that bad because they just can't get anything going on offense, man. They just can't.
Yeah, I mean, they had the ball and they ended up taking a field goal down 13-9, and they just can't get in the end zone, and then that's what lost them the game. I mean, they outgained Georgia on offense. Georgia had like 12 first downs. I think Kentucky had around 20. So honestly, Kentucky should have won the game, but I'm glad they didn't. I want Tennessee to be the one to knock them off.
I couldn't hear the end of that. I think Georgia wins next week. I just think, again, I think it's a fluke game, but they're going to Alabama. It's going to be a tough environment. Not as tough as Neyland, obviously, but look what they did last year to us. I mean, we didn't have a good quarterback last year, or the defense we have. But again, it's going to be tough for teams like Georgia, man. I mean, look at their schedule. They play the number 4 team in the country, number 1 team, the number 6 team, the number 5 team. It's like they don't have an easy schedule. Like it's like you said, it's the SEC. And I was just watching a podcast right before we even started recording this, but the guy said it perfectly. A game like Oklahoma with us, I think Oklahoma is going to be in for a rude awakening coming into the SEC because you don't have that cupcake schedule from the Big 12, to where you only play Texas and one more maybe decent team. You're gonna play because Oklahoma's schedule. Let me look at that because that was actually intriguing to me because Oklahoma might even have a harder schedule than Georgia does, but
yeah.
I think they're in for a rude awakening. Yeah, look at their next. Oh my, yeah, they literally play us, Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, Bama, and LSU. I mean,
wow.
They play in Death Valley. They play. They're at home against Alabama, which is good. But they go to Ole Miss and they go to Missouri. I mean, plus you play Texas, and Texas looks unstoppable right now. So. Again, the SEC is the SEC.
Yeah, I was just about to say, welcome to the SEC. That's just how it is. You're playing good to great teams every week, week in and week out. And I want to talk about this LSU and South Carolina game now. I mean, it was bonkers game. I mean, LSU did everything but tell South Carolina, here's the game, take it. And the Gamecocks refused to take it. And LSU won 36-33.
Yeah, that was. I mean, they were just undisciplined at the end. I understand all these fans because we'd be doing the same thing, blaming the refs. But the team was just undisciplined. They had 2 pick sixes that got called back, and they would have won the game easily. I mean, they had a 17-point lead. I don't care. I just don't think. Deal with it. They're just undisciplined. It was, their own fault. But I think teams like Oklahoma and, even Texas is obviously in a better situation than Oklahoma. But I think we're catching Oklahoma at the right time. I think they played 3 lesser opponents. They're just thinking winning's winning. And then you get a team in here, Tennessee, that has the culture it has, the quarterback, the coach. The coach's situation is going back home and hating the athletic director, wanting to prove that he's the coach that they should have hired. Because I hate to say it, I don't think Josh Heupel would go anywhere right now. I think Knoxville's his home, man. I think as long as he's doing good and, I don't think anyone could take Josh Heupel because it's kind of like a Tony Vitello situation without the national championship.
Yep. I completely agree. And like you said, he'll have something for Oklahoma just because of the way they treated him on the way out. But, yeah, I mean, LSU, like you said, they were down 17-0. They got it close in the second half. They went They had a first and goal and turned it over on downs. They missed an extra point and then missed a 2-point trying to make up for it. They were trying to throw South Carolina interceptions to return, but like you said, South Carolina just was undisciplined, and that's what cost them the game. What about Florida and Texas A&M? I mean, that final score was not not indicative of how the game really went. Texas A&M,
No, yeah.
they dominated.
Yeah, with a backup quarterback.
Hmm.
That quarterback looks better than Weigman. I hate to say it. He looked like the team just rallied around him, and it just. I think A&M's on the uprise. I think it might take a couple years, but again, Florida. I think they should keep Billy. I think they should keep him. I think he just needs a little bit more time.
An absolute galaxy brain move to alternate quarterbacks literally every other series. That was obviously the problem, Billy. You nailed it. What in the world is that? You think after one of the quarterbacks leads a touchdown drive, you'd keep that dude in the game, but no, I'm going to go back to the other guy. Just nonsense down in Gainesville right now. And I don't know if he's going to make it to Knoxville. I really don't think he will.
I think he will, and I think it'll be the final straw. Because when they come into Knoxville and they're playing Graham Mertz and Tennessee wins 45-7 or whatever the score is going to be, I think fire him at that point. Just let us beat Billy one more time.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a winning record against them and not a 500 record. But yeah, trouble down in Gainesville, and I'm all for it. What about Missouri? Kind of looking a little bit pedestrian against Boston College.
Little flukish. They look like frauds. But again, I think Missouri has the pieces to be a good team. They have Luther Burden, probably the best wide receiver in the SEC. But again, their schedule is really easy. But I think if they get to the playoff, I think they're going to be one of those teams that when they play a real good football team, they're going to find out. And again, they struggled, man. They struggled to get down the field and score on Boston College. No hate to Boston College. They're a decent football team, but yeah, they look fraudulent.
Yeah, I don't think any more needs to be said about that. And that was really the notable SEC games besides Mississippi State losing to a MAC team.
Yikes. And everyone said, Mississippi State's going to be the shocking one when they come to Neyland and win. Yeah, not what I saw. That is not what I saw. They look like the MAC team.
Yeah, and by the way, Kent State is in the MAC, and look what we did to them. But I really wanted to touch on this another program in shambles down in the Sunshine State. Memphis going into Tallahassee and beating Florida State to put them at 0-3 after being ranked in the top 10 to start the year.
That's where you show that preseason rankings don't matter, and you find out real quick on who the good teams are and who, the bad ones are. Florida State honestly might be lucky to make a bowl game.
I don't even think they do. How can you stick with this dude at quarterback? I know that's not the only issue, but they can't get it in the end zone. They've scored, I think it's less than 5 touchdowns at this point. What?
I'm looking up the rest of their schedule because I'm really curious on. Yeah, I'll be surprised if they win 6 games because so they have to win 6 to get to a bowl game. Cal's no fluke. Cal beat Auburn. They're not a bad football team. SMU is not a bad football team. Clemson obviously isn't a bad football team. Duke's not a bad football team. Miami sure is not a bad football team. I think they'll beat North Carolina. They should at least. And then they play Notre Dame on the road, and then they play Florida, which I think Florida would beat them at this point.
That game will be on Nickelodeon at this point.
It should. Yeah, honestly, I'd be shocked that if they could win 6 games. Honestly, it looks like to me, if they're lucky, they go 5-7.
I mean, like you said, it just proves that preseason rankings, preseason hype means jack shit once the ball is kicked off. Like, like they were banking on this guy, a transfer to come in, DJ Uiagalelei, and he has done nothing. He's been a detriment to that team. And how sickening must it be for a Florida State fan to lose to the school that your current coach came from at home? Like,
well, not only that, at home, that you paid them 1.5 to come play you.
Yeah, it's
that's nuts.
I couldn't imagine being that lower. I mean, that's like if. I mean, to me, it might be worse than Tennessee losing to Georgia State just because of the hype surrounding the team, you know, not a mere 3 or 4 weeks ago, and to come that far down to earth in such a short amount of time, it's just it's hilarious, you know, to the rest of the country, but for them, I can't imagine how they're feeling. I mean, they are in absolute shambles. And I think Norvell's buyout is around, I think I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it's an outrageous number just because of what they extended.
I don't think it's Norvell, though, bro. I don't think it's Norvell. I just think that that bad.
I mean, he's in charge.
Because, like, I know, and I'd be sitting DJ. I would be not. He wouldn't play. But you want to hear a funny thing that I just seen on Twitter?
Absolutely, always.
Alabama is 67% on the ESPN thing against Georgia.
Wow. I guess they're giving them a lot of credit for playing that game at home next weekend. But
I don't know, though. I think Georgia's going to be out for revenge. Again, I think you were right. I think Georgia was looking towards this Alabama game, and they overlooked Kentucky. They got lucky and won. But I think Alabama is going to be, you know, way for opponent than Kentucky, obviously. And I still think Georgia's going to win that game. I don't know what it is. I hope Georgia's undefeated when we go to Athens. I really do.
Yeah. By the way, Norvell's buyout comes in at $65 million.
Oh yeah, just let me get my wallet real quick.
I'm all for them keeping them. I think it's hilarious. I mean, recruiting ground in Florida where one of the biggest schools is in shambles is nothing but beneficial to Tennessee. So that's about it for the games that I want to talk about. You got anything else tonight, Jim?
No. We'll tell the listeners that, you know, we got a big preview coming up on Tuesday. It's going to be really interesting. It's big game. Right now, this is probably the game of the year for Tennessee. You know, obviously, if you win, there's going to be other games of the year. But right now, this week, this is the game of the year. This team's going to be prepared. Josh Heupel's going to want to win. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really fun to talk about and really fun to just come up with scenarios on what would happen. But Tennessee looks really good. Nico looks really good. Josh Heupel's got this culture up. I mean, there's not much else to say. I think we got a go Vols coming.
I agree. I think you summed it up perfectly. Go Vols, baby.
Go Vols.